pass all of them. Okay, and finally, the last one begins with an L. Lay on the table. Good job. And I remember this one as being the highest ranking of the subsidiary motions because I think of the visual representation of laying something on a table, which is at the top of our listing. So if that helps you, so hopefully you've had an opportunity on your own sheet to rank these in order going up, and ideally you'd be able to remember this as you're leading a group, their order of precedence, or have something handy so that if something comes up, you know when something is in order. So, having done all that, are there any specific questions that come up to you in regard to Tom's presentation? Sharon, your head nodded.
You know, it's in Tom's presentation, I wrote things down 7 to 1. Yours is 1 to 7, so I'm confused now as to whether I'm going up or down. If somebody gives you a motion, are you going up or
Yes.
are you?
You're going up.
You're going up, so that, okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Judy?
Well, I was just thinking out loud, so all those items that are higher in precedence, how do you say the word?
Precedence.
Precedence affect what's below it.
Yeah.
That's correct, so the main motion's the lowest item and everything else affects it. The next higher up one on your whiteboard is the second lowest and everything above it affects it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So another way to think of this might be in terms of a ranking. So this outranks the main motion. It needs to be processed before we can get to the main motion. An amendment needs to be processed before we can get back to the main motion. A secondary amendment needs to be processed before we can get to the main amendment, before we can get to the main motion. All of these subsidiary motions do things that enable us to either perfect the main motion or do something to dispose of it. So it's enabling the group to make a decision on what's in front of us.
Well, in essence, what you're saying there is that you may have amendment, there's like, you could at least have 4 of them not on that list, and you could have the previous question being the next item to the main motion. So it's not necessary that you have all of those on that list.
Correct. And it would be unusual that you would have all of them on the list, although not impossible.
Situation.
There's been instances in this club where we've had examples of having many of them at the same time, but and that's a good reminder that you can only process, the idea behind parliamentary procedure is processing one thing at a time, which is why there's a ranking of these motions. It allows you to enable yourself to know what needs to be done next to get back to the main motion.
I just want to make one quick question, or one quick point. Often I've been in a meeting where somebody will say, I call a question or a previous question, and somebody will say, well, that means we've got to vote on this. And I raise my hand and say, no, we've got to vote on whether we want to vote, whether we want to stop talking about this
Correct.
before we vote on the motion.
So, having said that, this speech is done time-wise. I welcome back our Toastmaster, Medard Kaiser-Schott.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.